In the beginning, there was sourdough bread. It's chewy, airy, wholesome. Humans have been baking it for thousands of years. And sourdough bread wouldn't be possible without a mother dough, also called a sourdough starter. If you leave out water and flour for a while, eventually wild yeast and bacteria will move in. We can thank these tiny organisms for making dough rise. Without them, sourdough bread would look something like this. But we really don't know much about the bacteria and yeast living in a starter, and they have a huge influence on how bread tastes. So scientists at NC State and Tufts University are trying to understand the secret lives of microbes, using little bits of sourdough starters from all over the world. First, let's go back to baking school. Most breads you get from the store don't use a starter. They rely on commercial yeasts to rise, the kind you see in packets like these. These microbes are good at one thing: making dough rise fast. And sometimes that's what you want, because baking is hard. There's no dash of this and sprinkle of that in baking. Here's what happened when I tried that method. But I'm going to make some sourdough bread because it's for science. Here's how you do it. You take water, you take flour. You add equal parts water and flour to a bowl. Put a blankie on it, name it something cute, like Goobs. And then you feed it flour and water every day. Time to feed the beast again. If all goes well, after a few days, the microbes are flourishing and your starter is ready to bake with. They're basically like a very useful Tamagotchi. And it's weird, you sort of develop a fondness for these jars of fermented slop. Some starters are hundreds of years old, passed from generation to generation. San Francisco miners supposedly cuddled their starters at night to keep them from freezing. There's even a business in Stockholm that will babysit your starter when you go on vacation. Josh Bellamy gives his starter credit for the success of his bakery.
There is something that's distinctly romantic for me about having used the same starter for almost every loaf of bread that we've baked here. It's a thread that runs through our entire history as a bakery.
But if it died tomorrow, you could make another one.
If it died tomorrow, I think it'd be pretty bummed. I don't know. I won't let that enter my brain.
It's clear we humans have a pretty intimate relationship with our starters, but how do they actually work? A quick lesson on fermentation.
Growing a sourdough starter from scratch, it's like growing your own microbial garden. The flour is your soil.
This is Dr. Erin McKinney.
Bow to the little ones.
When you leave out flour and water, bacteria and yeast invade. At first, the bacteria do most of the work, feeding on the starches in the flour and creating a more acidic ecosystem.
And then that clears the way for those yeasts to move in. They're producing carbon dioxide, which makes those lovely bubbles that make our bread rise.
So we know the basic functions of these microbes, but not the more detailed information. Like, why does some sourdough taste different from others, even when they come from the same ingredients? Why can't I replicate Josh's sourdough exactly? Is there something special about the microbes in his starter? Or on his hands? So that's where the research comes in. Erin and her team collected more than 500 sourdough starters from people all over the world and asked their owners some basic questions.
What type of flour do you feed your starter? How often do you feed it per day or per week? Is your body male or female? And if you are handling your starter and your bread dough, then you are imparting your own microbial signature into your starter and your bread.
These types of factors could influence microbes in a starter, and as a result, how your bread tastes. The team also sequenced the DNA of the microbes in each starter to pinpoint what kind of yeasts and bacteria are living in them. I'm too late for this study, but I'm still curious about what's in my starter. So Goobs and I took a trip to the big city to get tested at NC State with Erin.
This pipette, it really sucks, just like a champ.
Erin took a sample of my sourdough and then swabbed my hand to see if the microbes on my hand look anything like the microbes in my starter.
We'll go up in these crevices a little bit to see what you're hiding from the world.
We checked back the following week to see what grew.
There's a really bright raised one in the very center of that plate. That looks the same as one of the colonies that we saw in the starter. Did Rossi pick up that bacteria from her starter, or did she give that bacteria to her starter.
Get ready for the big takeaway.
Although it might seem like my starter and I have a deep relationship, Erin and her team found that what we do to our starters, where we keep them, what we feed them, all those factors only explain 13% of the data.
So basically, although we've been baking bread for thousands of years, our influence on microbes might only be a small part of why they behave the way they do. Pretty humbling, right?
So the next question was, if it's not about humans, is it about the microbes themselves? So we're trying to get a handle on those different interactions at the microbial level, because maybe that explains the other 80% of the variation that we just have no idea about right now.
If scientists can understand how microbes behave in a sourdough starter, they might be able to unlock the secrets of microbe behavior in more complicated environments, like stomachs, which have a huge influence on our health.
Sourdough is like a stomach in a jar. It's a wonderful model for a lot of more complex microbial communities.
Okay, and I did end up baking some sourdough bread. This is how it turned out, but it's not my fault. I'm blaming the microbes.
To learn more about the Global Sourdough Project and the microbes behind fermentation, check out the links below. And like and subscribe.